Do you see a role for non-banks in payments, either as an originator or a consolidator? And how do you think that's going to work out?
Absolutely, and I can give you some interesting examples. We've seen in Latin America, which is a big market in itself around payments, a lot of folks from, say, North America who will actually try to send money down to Latin America. And what they'll do is they'll send the money to their phone. They'll send them a prepaid phone card. So someone will walk into the phone store and say, I have a $50 credit on my cell phone. Can I get $10 back? Can I spend $10 on something, and can I spend $30 on your phone? And effectively what's happened is now the phone companies become a bank. They become a distribution of cash, and they've become a mechanism for buying something else, and they've been a mechanism for their own services. And so now they're coming to people like ACI and saying, maybe we need a payment strategy. PayPal is a really good example in the United States, where they were seeing such a huge volume of payments that we provided them with a fraud service. Amazon.com, which I think a lot of people know about, has now entered the payments business. I mean, there's a lot of non-banks that have gone into the payments business, which is going to really make things a little bit different for the current established payments, global payment banks.
I mean, there's the other side of the coin as well that says the financial crisis recently has put more emphasis on the brand of a bank, the trustworthiness of a bank, and the dependability of a bank. There seemed to be a time during boom times where a new bank could open, and because it offered 2% more on deposit, everyone would rush in there and put their life savings in there to get that extra 2%. Well, that's really changed now, because the brand of an HSBC or the brand of a JP Morgan has now become very important. You know, the brand of Black Bank, for example, that's just started yesterday, is people are not as comfortable with that anymore. So I think that the non-banks have moved into areas of payments that have very high customer convenience, and the banks aren't necessarily addressing those markets very well. But if the banks actually moved into that area of the market, I think that the trust and the brand is so important in payments that they would grab back a majority part of that.
And how are banks in Asia dealing with this need to introduce new channels, new origination points, at the same time having to deal with the legacy infrastructure, the back end, especially in the area of shared utilities?
I think the banks here are more innovative than the Western banks in terms of the access to customers, and they look to expedite the new services that they bring to market much faster than their Western counterparts. And you can see in places like the Philippines, for example, in terms of stored value, and Hong Kong, you see examples of that around the region. So, and you can see that in Japan, there's a lot more technology-savvy consumers who expect the multiple access and multiple channels to their banking partner.
Did either of you see how the global crisis contributed to banks taking white labeling more seriously?
I mean, from an Asian perspective, the banks who were white labeling services were white labeling from UK and US institutions, and the perceived risk level amongst those UK and US institutions who were providing that white label service, and whether they would continue to provide them, was a key factor in some of the domestic banks' investment plans.
Well, I think that the Western banks, particularly, say, North American banks, probably are a little bit ahead of the Asian banks in liquidity services. They've been offering these services since the mid-'70s and have become very efficient at it. So when the global crisis came, they already had managed liquidity positions and had started to deal with the individual decisions their corporation needed to make, whether it was hiring more banks or whether it was outsourcing to other firms, spreading the money around. What Jeremy is saying is obviously that trend has now hit a much more rapid pace here in Asia than it has from a growth standpoint in the United States and North America.
Would you say that fraud is like a calling card now to get to banks that you traditionally would not talk to or weren't talking to?
I think I've worked for ACI for 10 years now, and I look at this company as essentially a risk management company for payments.
That's what it is. It's looking at securing payments and reducing any of the possible leakage that you're going to get out of payments.
I agree with what Jeremy's saying. I mean, we're seeing RFPs come almost one a month just on that basis alone, looking at what we call enterprise fraud, all the channels, and trying to move all that to real time. Not every transaction, but the high risk transactions real time.